you laughing.
Oh.
Okay, I read something really interesting in this book, right? That gave me a really interesting idea. So Hank Green wrote, that's not important in case you're gonna associate anything to that.
The fact that it's Hank.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the Crash Course guy, right?
Okay, that's a decent reputation to start with.
Is he known for other things?
He has a big background in science, but I think he's mostly associated with like John Green, and at least I know him from their podcast where they talk about very random things that doesn't seem academic stimulated. But he knows a lot. He seems really educated, so I trust a lot of what he says. He wrote a book that seems to be coming from, it's fiction, but it seems to be educated. And in it, he speaks about this intelligence. I don't know if it's AI. Oh, it's definitely from out of this world.
It's not human, it's
what do they call it? Yeah. No, what's it called when it's...
Sentient.
Yeah, something like that. That comes down here. And it came, like, overnight. There was a glitch, and a bunch of what people thought were art installations showed up around the world for no reason. And then it started blowing up that there was clues to other things, and then there was a second book where it dove into this whole other thing where basically everyone was being controlled by virtual reality goggles created by this one company that was controlled by this thing, and it took over to the point where humanity didn't need anything else except for these VR goggles. I mean, the entire currency and all of that was controlled by this thing. And now I've started really worrying that that's like the future of what we're headed to. One, because people are becoming like really, really reliant on ChatGPT, but two, BBC News posted this little like thing that showed up yesterday somewhere in the UK, and they were like, there's no explanation to why the statue thing is here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And people think that it's extraterrestrial.
Wait, a statue just showed up in the UK somewhere?
Yeah, and a guy came across it, and there's like, I didn't read into it, but it looks like it's a situation that's like the whole Easter Island thing where, you know, they don't know where it appeared from, but it seemed a little bit too strange for it, and apparently it's not the first one. And his most logical thought immediately was...
aliens.
Yeah.
So it's like, the book is like a Ready Player One type of thing.
A what?
The movie Ready Player One.
I don't know.
Oh my god. It's pretty much like people are living in the VR world with VR currency and everything like that, but there is no like element of AI in
it's entirely run by AI.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what they do is, you know, because they live in VR is essentially artificially made, right? So they're living in it. And again, like a big point was that they could be awake in the VR while their bodies were sleeping. So you would get replenished by this thing, and you wouldn't need anything else out of it other than to take maybe an hour a day off it to, like, you know, feed and clothe yourself. But you would feel, you as your mind, because I think it's a lot based on like your mind, would feel completely like all your essential needs are covered while you're in this thing.
Okay. And you think society's headed there?
Yeah, I'm worried that I think people have become like reliant on GPT in a really bad way, and it's unlike anything that's happened before, and it looks like we're following the little steps that become this thing.
What do you mean in a bad way?
I think people are... I have this constant fear that people are evolving not as they should be, that they're almost like regressing, even though that's a really stupid idea because, you know, evolution moves forward no matter how it moves forward. But it's like, people, I feel like, are losing skills based on their reliability of GPT. People are becoming a little bit lazier because of it, and the more they know how to use it, the lazier they can get. And it's in a situation where essentially smart people are getting smarter and dumb people are getting dumber. Dumb and lazy people are getting dumber. So what if people become these mindless blobs and like a waste of human intelligence?
I don't think GPT reliance is necessarily a bad thing. Maybe in its current state, with the amount of times that it's wrong out of 100 times, is not very reliable. But I think once it gets to that point of being good enough to give you the information you need, I don't think that could ever be seen as a bad thing. If anything, it's just shortening the research process, which doesn't make it necessarily, it doesn't make you necessarily lazier. It just means you're more efficient, right? If you can do something in 2 minutes that it would otherwise take you 2 hours to do, using more of your brain power or more of your manpower, I guess. That doesn't necessarily make you lazier. The fact that you want to take the 2 minute route if you're going to get to the same result, especially when it's not like the end result. It's like a step in a bigger picture. If you wanted to know a certain piece of information, I think at the point where GPT becomes 100% reliable or 99, however, as much reliable as it can get, once we get to that point, I think, if anything, it's better that we use it than you doing a Google search or searching on TikTok or searching on Instagram. Because a lot of people these days, at least if you want to learn how to do certain things or recipes, you would go to TikTok, you would go to Instagram, you wouldn't really, not a lot of people know how to search for good information. They search it the easiest way. And if you're looking at content creators on these social media platforms, they have incentives to misinform you, right? So it's kind of, using GPT kind of takes away that misinformation aspect. If it's giving you the accurate truth all the time, and it's easier and faster to do than a Google search or looking through TikTok videos that could potentially be lying to you. That's what I think.
But I think a lot of your thoughts rely on people being conscious of their behavior, people being conscious that that's what's happening as it happens. People realizing that, what I'm doing now could be made more efficient through GPT, and that's why I'm using it. And what do you think, like, more can come out after that? Like, if GPT covers these needs that we have, that we are able to spare up time and space to do other things, do you think that's, like, the importance of this?
But so you don't think that people know that they're using it to be more efficient?
Yeah, I think that it's taking away from people's intelligence for the ones that aren't conscious of what they're doing. For example, it's like mindless work is probably worse than if you were mindful of it. An example could be there was a point where I started probably like researching anything I needed through GPT, and I very well knew that I'm like losing the ability to actually ask Google stuff now, but I was able to rely on GPT to an extreme case where I could string together a bunch of words that didn't make sense but roughly had the idea I was conveying, and GPT would fix it up for me. And now I think like my vocabulary's gotten a little bit worse. I think the way I ask things like that has got a little bit worse. I think it's affected how I'm able to ask a question in just a conversation, even in a lecture, just because I can't phrase what I want to do, because that part has been taken for me and done for me. And isn't that a bad thing?
But I think Google also has that though. Like if you search, for example, if you want to know the age of celebrity, you just type the name, age, right? You don't say how old is this. I feel like that's the same way. If anything in ChatGPT, if you want a correct answer, you have to like engineer your prompt better, right?
Yeah, but I feel like only like smart people know how to engineer their prompts better. I think smart people know that prompts are what they have to alter in order to get better ones. I mean, if I was smart, and because I don't think I'm part of the community that knows that I can use more useful prompts to get more out of GPT, then I would probably ask GPT now, like, what is the best way I can prompt you in order for me to maximize my gains from what you do.
You know, an interesting thing happened sometime this year where I wrote a paragraph and someone asked me if it was ChatGPT, and I felt kind of insulted. And I also, like, for a period of time, also had a period where I was using it a lot, but I didn't know that the vocabulary had rubbed off on me in such a way that someone would ask if something I literally just wrote out, like, it wasn't even like a well thought out thing that I wrote. I just wrote it out, the first words that were coming to my mind. And someone asked if it was ChatGPT. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do see what you mean by, I guess, people losing their vocabulary skills.
Did you use the word underline?
Underline?
Yeah.
No.
What is it? Underscores.
Oh,
it's
so
GPT uses a lot.
It uses underscores a lot. No, but it's just like, I get that, but at the same time, I am still struggling to see, I guess, where the bad is in all of this, right? Because if, at the end of the day, like I said, if it's helping productivity, whether you know it or not, if it's helping, right?
Okay, if I could, I think, put my train of thoughts in better words. People advance by learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, there are many learning methods and techniques, but I think the one that's universally used is I give you, you learn something and then you're questioned on it with a set of questions and you approach it and then it gets, you get proven correct or incorrect or something and you learn more from that. But then something from that is taken away if instead of getting a list of questions and you're meant to approach it without knowing the answer and you answer it with your first try or whatever, you get the set of answers immediately and you're just taking that and trying to study it. So what if this is like what ChatGPT is doing? It's taking away how people learn.
It's changing how people learn.
Yeah.
Instead of trial and error until you get the answer, it's now you have the answer and you understand how you got, so you're working backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah, that's why I sort of think that we're regressing a little bit in that sense. I don't think that this was a good thing for the field of education, just in terms of how people learn, and that's a big problem.
I think people just need to. I think evolution is an interesting thing. I think we're going to adapt. Human beings are good at one thing, and that's adapting. And I think, sure, right now we're in the early stage, and so all of these problems are rising. But I think the education system and everything else is going to adapt, and people are slowly going to realize, okay, how we can actually use this in the right way for betterment rather than the opposite. At the end of the day, it's like you said, we're taught to learn, and so the more you can learn in a shorter period of time, the better. And if ChatGPT is a tool that has the potential to accelerate that learning, then that's a good thing, right? The fact that when my dad was in university, he had to use a calculator to calculate everything, and now we can put in one line of code and it can do that for us. That doesn't make us dumber, doesn't make us lazier. It just means we can learn more faster because we don't have to worry about putting everything into a calculator and spending that much time learning how to use a calculator to do that when now we can do it in one line of code. I feel like that's how it's going to progress with ChatGPT. Right now, okay, we're not really maximizing the way we use it, but I think the reliance of ChatGPT is not necessarily a bad thing once we know how to use it properly.
So, by the sounds of it, the reliance on it will only get bigger and more from what it is now.
Mm.
So let's say our peers who are currently using it to fix their code or write their code for them, it gets to a point where people aren't able to write out lines of code by themselves. And now they're going to have this reliance carried with them throughout their entire career. So what if at no point they're learning anything new from their coding, because there's almost no need to. ChatGPT will do it for you. So they don't advance on what they know. They don't advance on their knowledge. They don't advance that plotting this graph is the base, and because I've put it in ChatGPT so many times, I know what I'm doing now, and I can make a basic plot using matplotlib on Python and poop out this thing. I think people can't do that anymore because I think people from step one are still asking ChatGPT at this point, hey, plot this graph for me, and then hey, do this stuff, and they'll just keep doing that throughout the rest of their lives, and they don't add anything to society in that way, because ChatGPT is adding something to society in that way, and they're not. And now it's raising a whole generation of people who are like this in each field of whatever they're doing.
I think even before ChatGPT, programmers were notorious for Stack Overflowing everything that they wanted to do. I can't do this, so I'm gonna check Stack Overflow and copy someone else's code. The only thing there was that it wasn't applicable to every situation. Like you can't change a Stack Overflow answer, right? It's for a specific context, and so maybe you would need some domain knowledge to be able to know how to apply someone's code to your situation. But I think with GPT, at least right now, if you've ever tried to code with it, asking it to do what you want to do is just not gonna work. I feel like you still need to have some domain knowledge to know where it's wrong. Because if you just put in an error message every time, like you ask it to do something, it spits out the code. You put it in your software, run it, it spits out an error message. You copy the error message, put it back in ChatGPT, and you just keep going in this loop where it never really solves the problem for you. And unless you actually like know a little bit of what is going on, and maybe it changes the name of this variable here and then changes it back here, so maybe that's the problem, or things like that. I feel like you still need some domain knowledge to be able to use ChatGPT for domain specific things, you know? Like sure, like to plot a graph, okay, it's going to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, like I said, like you want to think at a higher level of abstraction. You don't want to think about writing out 4 or 5 lines of code just to print one graph. If you don't have to worry about that, you can think of better things. Maybe how to better visualize it before printing it. So then your brain power isn't going into writing plt.show fake size or whatever.
But I think people aren't using their brain power to think of those things because they no longer need to. People are asking ChatGPT for those answers too, of what could be a better way to approach this thing or something like that. Like everything is being laid out for them through this. So what is the value of a person now?
What is the value of a person?
It's the value of like ChatGPT. The value of a person just decreases significantly.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I get where you're coming from. In that situation, sure, you could say the smart get smarter and the dumb get dumber, in the sense that people who know how to effectively use it are going to get way better, and people who don't are going to get way worse. Because at the end of the day, ChatGPT and large language models like that, they can't innovate, right? So they're not thinking of new stuff. You have to come up with the new stuff. And if you're using it if you're using it for everything, it's always going to give you something that has already been done, if that makes sense. And so the people who are using it for the lower level tasks, in order to free up brain space to do the higher level thinking and stuff, the innovation that is needed in society, I guess you could say they become better members of society, whereas the others become worse. But like I said, humanity is all about adaptation, and I think we're just too early. We're in the early adopters phase of this whole AI curve, that it's understandable that some people are using it wrongfully without realizing it. But like in the situation with your book, where it's God knows how many years into the future, and everyone is now so reliant on it and blind and mindless, I don't think we're going to get there, because we're adapting creatures.
See, what I see happening is that I think there are going to be 2 types of people that come out of this. I think that something like GPT reliance divides humanity into 2 classes. You got the class that is ahead of everything, and they're the people, you know, and this would probably be a world where your intelligence is your you know, the main currency or something. What makes you valuable. So it's going to be the people who are creating these large language models. It's these people who are training it and advancing them, and the people who know how to prompt it properly. And those are the ones that right now are probably graduating university with a degree that reflects what their actual abilities are. But then you get the other class of people, which is the other half of everyone else in the world, where you're essentially just graduating with a specialty in prompting ChatGPT. And what if it develops even more that it's like class 1 ends up just hiring class 2 so that they can cover the low level work that is prompting GPT for the small stuff that makes it mindless. So it's like right now we're in computational social science. You're going to have the people who are going to be able to contribute to this world in ways that advance it, because you know how to prompt these things properly. And then you get the people who throughout this entire degree just prompted GPT for everything they needed to do. And that's what they become. They become prompters.
So 2 things
and that's
here.
Their whole life.
Funny thing about history that it repeats itself, right? Like when computers came about, you had the people who knew how to code and people who didn't know how to code. And up until even right now, you see the people who know how to code are still running society and delegating the medial tasks to the people who do know how to code. So like people who know how to code are the CEOs, the heads, the blah, blah, people who are thinking of these softwares, making these softwares, that then these people who don't know how to code are, plugging their whatever their input into these softwares to spit it out. For example, using people in business analytics, you have the data scientists who know how to use Python and blah 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 to come up with these graphs and all these equations and all these models. Whereas you have people under them, the business analytics team that are still using Microsoft Excel, plugging in manually the numbers and then trying for 30 minutes to spit out one graph. I think that's kind of how it is with what you're saying with the prompt engineers and the engineering prompt people, I feel like that's what happens, but like the gap closes itself, probably like at the early 2000s, it was probably the gap was probably way bigger between the people who really know how to code and people who don't even know what a computer is, to now where everyone can use a computer in an adequate way. And you see it now, every study program in this university teaches you how to code because it's an essential skill now. I think that's what's going to happen as in education adapts. And so maybe right now, it's probably going to have its effects like 30 years down the line when we are the workforce. But right now, where you can get by university by just asking ChatGPT mindlessly to do your work for you, we're going to get to a point where, okay, you can't just get by a university degree program by asking a robot to do your work for you. You're going to actually, maybe it can aid you, but it's going to develop in a way where you're going to have to actually still know what you're doing with the ChatGPT in order to like get a degree. Because that's what's already starting now with this university, with the LLM challenge. They're trying to find ways ChatGPT could be used usefully for the students. Like some universities, you're trying to crack down and ban it, but here, which is what I like about university, is that they're already thinking about the future and ways to make sure you're using it to help you rather than mindlessly using it. And I think that's how it's going to develop. Maybe I'm just optimistic, but that's how I see it happening.
What if that gap, because in history that gap has closed before anyone can advance in the field that they're in, what if that gap doesn't close? Because once you're in these two classes of people, your intelligence is your own in the first one, but in the second one, your intelligence is ChatGPT. What if you lose the ability, like the people in that class lose the ability to innovate, because anytime they need to innovate something, they just ask ChatGPT. Hey, can you make something for me? Because ChatGPT can still do that, you can still name your business after something that you prompt GPT to do. Smart people, then it's like, the whole idea of property of your intellect. And that's what divides them, and that's why I think maybe that gap will never close. And the more we go along, the further it is that the gap, the bridge forms or whatever.
I read this interesting news where all large language model AI companies have lawsuits against them on copyright infringement, like of them taking data that they shouldn't have access to and using it to train their models. It's funny because how you just brought up the fact about copyright laws and intellectual property, but that was just a side thing. If the gap does grow, I mean, yes, there is a possibility that the gap never closes, and then we'll end up in your dystopia that you described, and that was described in Hank Green's book. But, yeah, I mean, it's just a gamble we have to take. At the end of the day,
What the strongest survive.
yeah, the weak will accept what they must. What's his name? Thucydides?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we will prevail. I think we've adapted for God knows how many years. We'll keep adapting. That's what we do. Man's strongest best feature is his brain. Some saying like that. But yeah, and as long as we have a brain, I think we're gonna be able to use it properly. Hopefully. Yeah. What's the name of the book that you read? I kind of want to read it now.
The first one is...
Oh, it's a series.
There's 2. Well, yeah, but there's only 2 and there'll only ever be 2. The second one is a beautifully foolish endeavor. And the first one is an absolutely remarkable thing.
First one, okay.
And how it starts was like this intelligence had run like, I don't know, quadrillion simulations to see which person it should start out with and how it ends for the world and all of that, and everything seemed incredibly similar to how things are happening now.
I think we're still a long ways away from that level of artificial intelligence. But
I mean, I think it's an exponential graph that, like...
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's happening. I think it's not that far away.
But
it will start happening.
It's in like it comes in waves, right? You know, like these AI winters and AI summers that they call it, where...
Oh, I've never heard of this.
Really?
Yeah.
We had a lecture about this. Cool lecture. And we just went through the history of AI and how like there were these different waves before everyone thought, you know, Alan Turing, and then there was a short winter and then it boom again, and then it was a winter until now. ChatGPT is now the big boom, and already we see GPT, like the next iterations of these large language models aren't growing as quickly as the jump from GPT 3.5 to GPT 4 was. But at the same time, we're seeing like multimodal AI stuff. Did you see the Sora AI stuff? I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, that's a whole different thing with creative laws and whether or not you should be able to use these large language models to make something creative and call it your own without giving credit to the training data and all that. But
do you remember in our matching course before we came, we had a paper on how the ethics and law will never catch up to the advancements in today's like technology.
I know what you're talking about.
Huh?
I know what you're talking about.
So I think we will never again be able to rely on ethics and law as a big enough argument to rule over the advancement of technology. I don't think anyone can. You know, I don't think the whole world is going to suddenly stop using GPT just because they have all the companies have intellectual property lawsuits against them. So I think that point we've passed now in history.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, whenever it comes to something so global, like as the internet, as ChatGPT, it gets very hard to police. You know, there's this whole thing about net neutrality that was like 2017, 2018, and everyone thought, oh, it was going to be the end of the internet, or it's good or bad, and there were good and bad sides to it, but at the end of the day, it's something you literally cannot police, something that everybody in the world uses or is going to use, such as the internet or ChatGPT. So it's like there is going to be a good side and a dark web or whatever where people do unethical stuff with this. But I mean, there are also going to be tools created that can detect these things. Hopefully, because right now, I had this data set on ChatGPT detectors and how biased they are towards like people who don't have English as their first language, and it's crazy. Like it was a clear bias where it would detect like if English was not your first language, or it would there were more false positives than if English was your first language and stuff like that. So we're in the beginning stages. There are always some wrinkles that need to get ironed out.
Speaking of the beginning stages, there was something else that the book brought to my attention was, like, what's his name? Sam Altman?
Mm-hmm.
Think about how much power he has right now. And, you know, maybe how much we know about him. Doesn't that, you know, he's almost getting like a god status to this world now just because of how many people are using GPT, and isn't that a little bit frightening? And we just learned about power.
The fact that he has so much of it?
Yeah, and it's coming from people themselves. It's not like he's, you know, assigned it to himself. It's that there are a bunch of people who aren't even aware of who he is, but will know that the thing that made this thing has a decent amount of control in their own lives.
When you say he has control over, what do you mean?
Well, I keep thinking about his recent, like, what was it, $3 trillion request, and how he managed to get that money. And I think
he got the money?
I think so, yeah.
Damn.
And how he didn't even have to say what he wanted to do with it. I mean, we all know that his beliefs are everything in the world should be contributing to the advancement of technology, maybe like specifically AI. But it's like to me, you know, he's just a guy. And now he's got a good chunk of the world population reliant on the technology that he uses, that he created, that he uses. And that's rather a lot that happened in, what, a year?
Yeah, but it's the same with the CEO of Google or TikTok or Meta. Like, there are always going to be these highly powerful people, and we just learn about realism. This is all about maximizing the power, right? But yeah, I mean, it is scary, but I mean, what can you do about it, you know? We have unanimously, consciously or unconsciously, given him that power. I mean, that's what we do with famous people. That's what we do with celebrities, right? We give them power through our attention or our use of their products. It's up to them to decide what they do with that power. And, I mean, deciding whether or not he's the rightful person or he's going to use this amount of money that he's received for good is hard to tell, because what is good, right? If it's for the advancement of technology and he believes that technology is the way to fix world problems, I mean, it's up to whoever. It's subjective. It's up to whoever to decide whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. Because when I like what they did with the Sora AI is that they haven't made it public, and I don't think they plan on making it public until there are relevant laws in place on.
Until humans stop being gross, yeah.
Yeah, because there's this whole Taylor Swift thing as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like it's bound to happen, right? Human nature. It's bound to happen. People are going to misuse whatever they can. They're going to test the limits, positive and negative. So, I mean, it's all scary. And I just hope that it doesn't become another arms race in terms of AI powers between countries. I don't know if they are already collaborating with the US government, but I hope it doesn't become a thing where, okay, ChatGPT or OpenAI is the United States nuclear weapon, nuclear AI weapon, and then Mistral is the French one, and then China already probably has one in their secret lab somewhere, and Russia is gonna develop one, and then everyone's just going to wanna control their people as best as possible, because once you have full control over the population, well then you have more power to act on behalf of the population, right? You watched Leave the World Behind, right? Yeah, it's kind of that kind of situation where, you know, once everyone's access to information is first of all blocked, and then only provided by one, like a monopoly is giving you that information, and you can't, like, you know, you can ask outside your sphere, which would in this state be your country that you live in, whether or not this information is right or not, because you can only be within your country. Then it's like, okay, they can literally control what you know and what you don't know way more effectively with ChatGPT than, say, the internet. So we will see. It could be the end. I feel like every big thing could be the end of the world.
Yeah, but I think ChatGPT specifically has unprecedented power that we've given it, I suppose, than anything we've ever had experience with. And that it's directing a lot of things now. It has, you know, I don't think things are, I suppose, happening as open and freely anymore, because ChatGPT is sort of this little variable that'll always be there in everything now.
Yeah, I found it crazy how, like, literally months after ChatGPT, every single website or tool had an AI assistant to help you. And for me, I found it was interesting, but also kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But that's capitalist society, right?
When you were suspected of someone, of GPT writing something, I was on the opposite side of that. We had a Google Docs, and someone had put in a paragraph, and it was already already strangely highlighted, which is not a good sign. And then I checked the history, and it was just like pasted there. But you know, to give the person the benefit of the doubt, maybe they worked it a little in their own document and put it there. But the wave of, I suppose, annoyance I had when I opened it and I saw that, and I thought, oh my god, this is what it's being used for.
I mean, sometimes I maybe I am biased, but like I try to associate the level of writing with the person, and if it doesn't match, then I immediately think that it's ChatGPT, which I guess is not the right thing to do. But also sometimes, I don't know, some people I would just wish they used it, because it's easier to fix a ChatGPT writing than the way some people write. If I'm not throwing any shade, I'm just saying, for some people, it's easier to fix a ChatGPT writing than what they actually wrote. But with my situation, it was annoying in the sense that it wasn't like directly asked to me that I used. It was like, oh, just make sure you don't, like, it was after we all wrote our part, like, oh, just make sure you don't, like I hope you don't use ChatGPT or something like that, some sly comment. And it was just like a sly look at me. I was like, I literally did not, like, use ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, it questions your integrity, obviously, that's solid. I mean, GPT's done that for everything that I look at now. It's a lot of my trust in people has decreased, and also just my trust in, like, their competencies upon meeting them for the first time and having work to do with them. And it's made me a very, like, skeptical person.
I don't know. It scared me a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe I just write good, but cheap, like, it writes too good. You know, it's like way too verbose. It uses the most complex version of every word, back to back. It just strings it together. I like to think I don't write like that. Yeah. I had a point like in middle school where I really just wanted to be as complicated as possible in my writing, and I thank my English teacher for that, for putting me on the right path. Now I just try to be as straightforward as possible when I'm trying to get my point across. Which I think is a good thing. I just don't get. Maybe they were just jealous of my writing. Yeah. Have you ever submitted a fully GPT written piece of work?
What I tend to do is I write like my first draft entirely by myself. Wow, it sort of sounds like it's a big deal.
Wow.
God, yeah.
You did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I write like everything with my full intentions, even with the worst words possible, and then I copy and I paste the whole thing in GPT and I say like, can you fix the grammatical errors in this because it's not coherent, but keep the main idea, make it coherent, and then you know the settings that you can set GPT to respond to you in a certain way. I always say like be as like concise and straightforward as possible, and don't add all the floofy words that it does. And then I think I ask it to do it a few times if I have it for a submission, and then I'll Frankenstein it together in some way, which all of this has been done in the interest of time, so I'm not quite sure. I think it would be like worse quality work if I would try to do it myself. That's a little scary. Yeah, I don't think I'm a very good writer.
I think you should have more faith in yourself.
No, I'm not a very good writer, and I know that GPT is something that helps me with that. Well, helps me overcome that to the outside world.
I think you just keep writing yourself. I think you get better that way. Like for me, in high school, like in 11th and 12th grade, I took English both years, like hardcore English. And what I did was, like, there's no ChatGPT. So I literally just put in a word that I want to say and add on synonyms, and then just pick whichever ones. And that's how I string together my sentences to make it sound academic and not too boring or in layman's terms.
I started that from like grade 3. You
were writing essays in 3rd grade on your computer?
Yeah, they gave you like, I didn't have a computer.
I didn't know how to type until...
They were like, there's this thing called a thesaurus. And you could just open it and choose a word that it says as an alternative.
But yeah, that's what I do now. Unless it's like a really hard sentence, and like I just write everything that comes to my head for that sentence and just ask ChatGPT to reword. So I don't like it when I put in because a lot of the time it shortens my text a lot, or like if it's a long piece of work, otherwise it just makes it too long. So I just like do it per sentence. I just try not to use, like for writing specifically, I try not to use it at all. Like if it's coding, yeah, I like if I'm really stuck on an error message, or I want to understand what a certain piece of code does, I'll ask it, and I've like that's what I've started to do. I think that's what people should start doing as well, is asking to explain the answer, or like asking to explain how it got to its answer. You know?
Or why are you so consciously aware of, like, why are you so conscious about how you're using it?
I mean, partly because of what we discussed already about the smarter getting smarter and dumb getting dumber. At the beginning, like...
You're worried about relying on it?
No. At the beginning, I'm not going to use that word. At the beginning, I was one of like the early adopters, and I just like put everything into it. And over the one winter break, not the most recent one, the one the year before, I tried to do a project, and I knew what I had to do. I just didn't know how to do it. And it concerned me that I needed, like, for a lot of things, I would need to ask ChatGPT how to do, which I thought should be at least basic knowledge. And so that's when I started, instead of just asking it and putting it in, I would like ask it why this, or like what makes this work, blah, 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 blah. And then so this winter break when I was writing projects, I literally recorded myself. It was kind of me being accountable. I recorded myself on my screen, and so I wouldn't scroll to ChatGPT to ask how to do this. I just do it on my own. And if I was like stuck for 30 minutes, okay, I will ask it to help me with it if I didn't find an answer on the internet. It's not a thing about reliance. Just I guess I feel more proud in knowing that I typed every single word of this program. Yeah.
That's important to you.
Not so much anymore. Yeah, it still is. I still pride myself in. I pride myself now more in understanding what I've done than doing everything entirely by myself.
I think I've got less faith in my own work now because of it. So I think before I submit or send anything I do out for as the final impression of work that I've done, I always run it through GPT first to see if there was a better, or if there's something that I missed, or there was a more optimal way of approaching something or something like that. And I think it makes people very paranoid.
Do you have GPT-4, right? So that's the good version.
Well, I wouldn't even know. I think that's just the idea of getting the best that's out there, that's available, whatever.
No, because what makes me confident in my skills over ChatGPT is that with GPT 3.5, I've caught it being wrong so many times that it's like, okay, you're actually dumb. So, me thinking I'm better than the robot comes from just me catching it out a lot, and which I think is probably more difficult with a paid version of ChatGPT, which is meant to be so much better. But that is an interesting concern. Why do you feel paranoid?
I think it's the idea of optimizing everything that goes on in life. That if there's a better way of doing it, then in a menial task or something that's not that important, then I'd like to ideally take the better way of doing it. I know in some things it doesn't matter, and some things I don't care about. But since everything we're involved in now is to do with our future and our education and whatnot, then I'm concerned about time, and that's what GPT is. It's something that optimizes and makes your life more efficient. So then I think, did I do the best? Was this the best way? And then it's trusting your own judgment versus getting it validated by a machine.
I don't think there's anything necessarily fundamentally wrong with that. I mean, as long as you have a certain goal, and that is to be as productive as possible, and if it helps you get to that goal, I mean, any means possible, right?
It's not wrong, but I don't think we're in a world where people would not look down upon that right now. I think, imagine a job recruiter hearing that you're a little bit, you trust the GPT a little bit more than yourself, and so you use it. It's like admitting a vulnerability at this point that I don't think brings positive connotations about your intellect.
I mean, it depends on what you're trusting it for, right? If you're trusting it more than yourself in things you're not so good at, right? You said writing. That makes sense. If you're trusting it to make a decision, should I cook pasta or rice tonight for dinner? If you can make that decision on your own, this is very irrelevant, but you can see how it applies, right? So if you're asking it for that kind of decision making, then sure, that could be a problem. And I hope you are not at that level.
Because then it makes me a mindless GPT user.
Yes. I don't think anyone is at that level. I think.
You really?
But okay, here's the thing. For example, with that, what's the difference if you're asking ChatGPT for that, or you're looking to your favorite TikTok content creator for that?
On what pasta I should cook?
on like making decisions, on like saying, oh, I don't know if I should do this or do that. So you watch the TikTok that Sophie35 made on the topic, and then you go wherever she does. It's like, like it's the whole thing about stan culture. You do whatever the person you look up to does, and these are not necessarily good people or qualified people, right? It's the same thing with ChatGPT, except it's trained on everything in the world versus a person who literally could be dumber than you. Like, why is one so much worse than the other when they're fundamentally the same thing? If anything, ChatGPT is probably a better resource than what else is out there.
On a note that is not this serious, I think it makes life a lot more interesting. It makes people a lot more interesting when they rely on each other, I suppose, for lifestyle inspiration. And it's like each human that's syndicated, each influencer has its little following that it affects and contributes, and it makes everyone interesting. GPT is not a person, right. And if everyone becomes reliant on it, then to some degree they all become the same person. I mean, imagine if everyone became reliant on GPT now for the way they spoke, then everyone would be using really long, annoying words strung together in their everyday conversation.
Is that any worse than everyone? Slay, period, queen, per.
The interesting thing is that
literally
that's not everybody.
Right now. No, because that is not everybody. Obviously, it can never be everybody, but everybody talks like that now. Literally, not literally, but you know what I mean. Like, there is a distinct and a very large group of people in the world these days that have a specific lingo that came from a specific part of human culture. The fact that it's that versus it being from a robot, I don't see how those two are different. And two things can be right. It's not necessarily right, it's not necessarily wrong, but they can be looked at in the same way.
Yeah, but I'm saying from the front, purely from the take that it keeps people interesting. It keeps part of humanity interesting, that each person has their own personality and whatnot.
Do they? I feel like everyone just
you're thinking of a specific age group in like a specific income bracket and what all that, like think about the rest of the world who don't use words like literally when they mean figuratively. What if GPT has the potential to, if it were embedded in every single person's life, to make a certain part of every single one of these people the same, and that humans can become mindless blobs in that sense.
But same way, not everybody is on that part of the internet. Not everybody on the internet is in that part. I don't think every ChatGPT user is going to be converted that way, if that makes sense. So like I say, I think there's a strong comparison to be made, and the fact that one is looked at way worse than the other, I don't think is right. I feel like same way how people are like very hardcore internet users are literally just extensions of the people they follow or the people they interact with on the internet. Same way how people heavy reliers on ChatGPT could become extensions of ChatGPT in the sense of the way they talk or the fact that they need it to make decisions or to think about stuff. They're both the same thing in my eyes. One is not necessarily better than the other. Sure, you can say it makes people more interesting, but that's just because that's how things are. Things can change. People don't like change.
Isn't there a part of you that wants to, that sees more value in interacting with people like yourself in terms of how you use GPT than the other type of people?
Say that again.
Like, do you would you discriminate against people in terms of how they use GPT?
I like to not think so. I don't discriminate, no.
What if in like a work setting, if you had to work on a group project with, with a person who is either mindfully using GPT or mindlessly?
I mean, it shows in the quality of their output.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, yes, I would have to judge, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you want the best work possible, and if someone isn't producing that, if they were to be of a good standard, I wouldn't care how you use ChatGPT to get to your answer, as long as it's adequate enough. Then, sure. I mean, do what you want to do. As long as it doesn't affect the group quality, then I don't think I would judge or discriminate.
And that's why I think at the very core of GPT reliance, it's not a good thing. It's that the people who are mindlessly using it will also want to work with people who are mindful about it, and people who are mindful about it want to work with other people who are mindful about it.
But isn't that just how...
What, everything works?
Yeah, I mean, you want to hang out with people who are better than you, and people who are better than you want to hang out with people who are like them or more.
Yeah,
so
but
it's like,
what you consider as people who are better than you, it's not that they're better than you in every aspect
right.
of their being. It's that they have one aspect or a few aspects
Mhm.
about themselves that they are better than you at, and that's why you want to work with them. But in a world where people are just completely dependent on GPT, then, as you spoke about, it's almost like they lose all aspects about themselves that make them better than the person next to them, that they all become the same person that can prompt a large language model.
And you think they would want to work with somebody who can teach them the better way? Or better?
Well, I think that things would only advance if they collaborated with people who can do more, in a sense.
Okay, that is an interesting thought, but I still think that applies to like working in a group, right? You don't want to work with, if you don't want to work with people who are not as good as you, because then you have to make up for because more often than not, they're not wanting to work with you, quote unquote better person, because they want to learn from you. They just want a free ride. And I think that it probably was going to happen if we do get to that point in ChatGPT. Because if they're already, in your words, lazy enough to 100% rely on ChatGPT, what made you think they wouldn't be lazy enough to also rely on the person who is better or more efficient at using ChatGPT and just free ride off of them rather than, I guess, learning their ways and trying to become better?
I think in the best world, best case scenario, the smarter person would try to get the other person's best quality to use or whatnot in a setting.
And we're not
That's
in the best
better.
world. We're in the real world. That's not how the real world works.
I thought you were positive.
I am positive, but I've had too many experiences to know that's not how it works.
What are you trying to say?
There's always the needle in the haystack that, wants to be more than just a needle, Someone who just actually wants to be better. And I think, if there's collaboration between class 1 and class 2, then obviously people from class 1, there are going to be some people from class 1 that are going to learn from the class 2 people and become class 2 people. And then eventually everyone's going to become a class 2 person. But if everybody's a class 2 person, then there are no classes. And then we want, right? But it's just not gonna happen.
I think a worry of mine is that our 3-year program, we're currently in the second year, if it existed as a 3-year program before we came in, I worry that I'm learning less, that I'm getting less out of these 3 years than someone else would have pre-GPT world. That we went through the exact same 3 years, except you with the exact same conditions and whatnot. Like it's just me and a little bit in the past before this existed. That I am less skilled than that person. That's what worries me. I'd be happy if we learned. Like I think the situation would likely that should have been is that we learned the exact same, or that current version learns a little bit more. But I really resent the idea that I'm dumber.
I don't think you're dumber.
Are you serious?
I don't think we would be dumber than people who went through this university program.
I think I could
before
plot a
ChatGPT.
graph without Googling how to plot a graph.
That doesn't make you dumber.
In that aspect, yes.
See, you're so stuck on the tiny little stuff. Like plotting graphs, sure. Like with repetition, you're probably gonna get there. But it's something so low on the to-do list, or like the level of thinking you have to do for a project, that it doesn't matter that you don't know how to make a good graph off the top of your head. Like you can ask a mathematician to tell you Pythagoras theorem off the top. He might not. Okay, not Pythagoras theorem, but like something that you would think that a good mathematician should know. They would tell you to Google it, because it's not something that is so important in their field, like plotting a graph. As long as you know how to interpret a machine learning model, or you know how to interpret the graph that is spat out by ChatGPT, you're good. You are going to be qualified in your field. If anything, you're going to be better than the person who did the degree program without ChatGPT. Because they're probably making very simple graphs, because that's what they know off the top of their head. You knowing how to ask ChatGPT to make a good-looking graph, and you being able to interpret that good-looking graph, I would say you're more valuable in the workforce than that person, because a better-looking graph tells a better story. You can probably communicate this to your higher-ups or whatever, you're the CEO or the decision-makers, better than the person who's making a simple matplotlib graph.
What would set me apart from someone else that can also just prompt ChatGPT whenever they need?
And that's the thing. So, not falling into this, I guess, mindless blob phase, then, is just your understanding of the domain, knowing, because it's all about the way you think. I feel like, I'm not a hiring manager, but I feel like I would like to think that hiring managers hire people based on the way they think. That's why you have these interviews, right? Because if you looked on paper, a lot of people are probably the same. But you have these interviews, and you have these explainer things during the interviews, like explaining your code, blah, blah, blah. Because they want to see how you think. And that's something that you can't ask ChatGPT. You can't ask ChatGPT to literally think for you, right? That's something that is unique to you. And maybe the processes, like the processes in which you use to get to a certain final answer, could look similar if you all use ChatGPT to learn. But it's the same way how everybody going to the same university and learning something the same way. Us learning machine learning models the Bayesian way from Roberto, we're all going to think about it that way, versus somebody who went to a more technical university like VU, and you're just learning the raw mathematical, just raw meaning of things without looking at the posterior or looking at the uncertainty and stuff like that, right? It's a different way of thinking. So, yeah, I don't think you should worry about being different from someone just because you both use ChatGPT. It's all going to be the way you think.